Have you ever looked at LFG and felt like you were looking at a bunch of hieroglyphs? Yeah. Today, I'm here to help with that. This video is going to go over as many semi-commonly used LFG terms and abbreviations as I could find, giving you both the meaning and the context in which they are used and what they are expecting of you if you were to want to join that group. I've grouped these in categories, starting with the ones that you'll see pretty much all over the place, the general ones, then things that pertain to group composition and party roles, and then the rest are split by content. So, strike missions, fractals, raids, and the one singular thing that I couldn't really categorize because it doesn't fit anywhere, so it has its own other category. Within those categories, I'm going over these things alphabetically, but know that to get started pretty much anywhere, you don't have to memorize absolutely all of these, though some of them are so common that you will inevitably remember them. It's a lot of alphabet soup, but the more you interact with it, the easier it gets over time. And in the meantime, no, you don't have to keep coming back to this video for every single term. I like getting views, but I don't like getting views that much. Instead, I've linked a document in the description below that has all of these terms in an accessible sheet that you can search and hopefully find stuff fairly quickly. And if you can think of any term that would be applicable for this, that I haven't gone over, please leave it in the comments and I'll add it to the sheet. Though note that we're only going over stuff that's relevant to LFG and not every single abbreviation or fan term in the game because, in my opinion, that is very unwieldy and confusing. That said, let's get started flipping through the dictionary with the general section. CM, or CMs in plural, means challenge mode. This is an increased difficulty version of a given encounter that often has different mechanics added to it and can, in some cases, be vastly different from the original. CM is also often used as a suffix added to the acronym associated with an encounter to signify that that specific encounter will be played in the challenge mode version. Daily. Daily can have a couple different meanings, but in the context of LFG, it usually gets brought up in the context of fractals and strikes, where each day, a specific selection of them have increased rewards, and that group wants to do those specific encounters. You can check which fractals are dailies in the achievement panel, in the daily fractal tab, and similar thing for strikes. EOD, meaning End of Dragons. The third expansion, in LFG, this most commonly comes up when referring to the End of Dragons strikes as a group. So either all of the 4 End of Dragon strikes as a whole, or for example, End of Dragon Daily Strike, which is the End of Dragon strike with increased reward for that day. EXP, meaning experienced. This group's looking for somebody who's already familiar with the content, with the expectation that they've completed it at least a few times, but they're not enforcing you to prove it. It's more of a vote of confidence. FC, full clear. This group intends to complete every applicable encounter in its context. Usually this is paired with a number for the raid wings, meaning they want to do all of those raid wings in full, or an expansion name, which again either means all of the raid wings associated with that expansion, or all of the strike missions associated with that expansion. HOT, or HOT, meaning Heart of Thorns. The first expansion, and for LFG, most commonly used to refer to the HOT era raid wings, numbering 1 through 4. IBS, Icebrute Saga, aka Living World Season 5, but Ada didn't want to call it that for some reason. In terms of LFG, this is most commonly used when referring to the strike missions that came out while Icebrute Saga was live. I'll go over more common usage of this term for strike LFG in the strike section. No mechs, meaning no mechanics. This group expects you to not require any instruction as to how the mechanics of the fight works, but doesn't have very high standards as to experience. It's the lower expectation version of experienced. KP, or in plural, KPs, meaning kill proof. This group wants you to link a particular item in chat, or in some other way prove that you've completed the relevant encounter before a number of times. Usually this is preceded by a number, which indicates the threshold as to how many of those proving items you're supposed to have for them to accept you. What exactly is a kill proof depends on context. For raid wings, it's the guild decorations, typically of the final boss of the relevant wing, and for strike missions, it's typically the reward coffers. Now, keeping those on and having to link them can be kind of annoying, This is why the website killproof.me exists, and if you have an account there and give it an API key, then it can track your killproof for you, and you can link people your killproof.me account to instead of linking items. LF, looking for, usually followed by a variety of acronyms referring to whatever the group still needs. LI, Legendary Insight, the currency rewarded for every raid encounter once per week, and is often used as a universal killproof. Ping, to link an item in chat. Ping anything. This is a practice in which a group's asking you to link literally any item at all. It does not matter what. People do this as a way to check if players have actually read the LFG post without having to put up any additional requirements. Soto, Secrets of the Obscure, the fourth expansion, and in the context of LFG, used to refer to the Soto era strike missions as a whole. Static, from Static Group. A static is a group of people that does specific content together in regular intervals, usually at least once a week. LFG posts for statics aren't runs that are going to be happening now, but are instead recruiting for long-term members of those regular playing groups. And that's it for the general ones. Now we're going to go over the roles and composition stuff. Anything in this category refers to the types of build the group is currently looking for. And there's going to be a lot of redundancy here, because I broke down a lot of the acronyms, both put together and into their suffixes and prefixes that are frequently combined to each other for the ease of searchability. Starting with A, or alac, being the prefix for alacrity, which means a build that can provide a group with 100% uptime of the alacrity boon. You don't see A as a prefix that often because it's very easy to confuse with, the article A. Then A DPS, alac DPS, or sometimes just alac, meaning alacrity DPS, a hybrid DPS support build that provides the group with 100% uptime of the alacrity boon. A heal or alac heal, same deal, but this time a full healing build that also provides the group with 100% up of the alacrity boon. C, the prefix for condition, builds where most of their damage comes from conditions. Typically this is used with CDPS, a damage-focused build that mostly does condition-based damage. DPS, meaning damage per second, the team role that's almost entirely focused on maximizing its damage output. There's also a variant of this acronym called DD from damage dealer. It means the exact same thing. It's a little more common with people who've played WoW for a long time, or for some reason Germans. I don't know why, it's just something I've noticed. DPS boon, any hybrid DPS and support build that can provide 100% uptime of alacrity or quickness. Epi, from the Necromancer skill Epidemic. This group is looking for one or more condition DPS Necromancer that can use that skill, because it's beneficial in certain encounters. Ham, Heal Alacrity Mechanist, a specific Mechanist build that fulfills the role of an Alacrity healer. This one's sometimes searched for explicitly because of its popularity and reliability. Heal Boon, or Boon Healer, meaning any healing build that can also provide 100% uptime of alacrity or quickness. HFB, Heal Firebrand, a specific Firebrand build that also fills the role of a quickness healer. Same deal with Ham. This is sometimes explicitly searched for because it's very popular, reliable, and is one of the best Aegis providers in the game. Need All. This group is looking for all of the supporting and special roles that's normally expected of the given encounter. At minimum, this means they're looking for 2 boon supports and 2 healers. This doesn't usually stick around for long because as soon as the first one of those turns up, they have to change the LFG. P, as a prefix meaning power, referring to builds whose damage is mostly coming from power-based damage, strike damage, or flat damage, whatever you want to call it, just anything that's not condition damage. PDPS. Admittedly, this is a bit of a rare term, but it means power DPS, so a DPS build that is, using power damage. Q as a prefix, meaning quickness, meaning any build that can provide the group with 100% uptime of the quickness boon. Stemming from that, Q DPS, quick DPS, or sometimes just quick, meaning quickness DPS, and thus any hybrid support DPS build that also provides the group with 100% quickness uptime. Q Heal, same deal, quickness healer, a healing build that provides the group with 100% uptime of the quickness boon. Tank. This is a pretty much a raid exclusive role who's responsible for positioning the boss correctly and doing other mechanics. How exactly it works and what exactly your job is varies wildly between encounters, so if you don't know exactly what you're doing, signing up as a tank, especially through LFG, is not a great idea. And that's it for the general roles. Now, there are other content-specific roles, but we'll go over those in the respective categories. For now, let's start with strike missions, where a lot of these are abbreviations referring to specific strikes. First up, AH, meaning Aetherblade Hideout, the first strike mission of End of Dragons. Sometimes this is also referred to as Trin, from the boss Mytrin. Bone, Skinner, or BS, as you might be able to guess from Bone Skinner, the fourth strike mission of Icebrute Saga that came with the episode Whisper in the Dark. CO, Celestial Observatory, the first strike mission from Secrets of the Obscure. CW, Cold War, the seventh strike mission introduced with the Icebrute Saga in the episode No Quarter. This one's not as popular as many of the other Icebrute Saga strikes because it's quite long. DS, in the context of the strike mission LFG, means Dragonstorm, referring to the instanced version of Dragonstorm that is sometimes done alongside other strikes in the private squad version. Phoebe, or TOF, for Temple of Phoebe, the second strike mission from Secrets of the Obscure. Freynier, from Freynier of Jormag, the third strike mission that came with Icebrute Saga in Whispers in the Dark. FS, Forged Steel, the sixth strike mission introduced with Icebrute Saga in Visions of the Past, Steel and Fire. Similarly to Cold War, this isn't as popular because it's quite long. And so now with those two acronyms, sometimes you'll see IBS minus FS minus CW, meaning you're running all the Icebrute Saga strikes except Forged Steel and Cold War. HT for Harvest Temple, the fourth strike mission of End of Dragons. HTCM is particularly notable for being the hardest encounter in the entire game to date. Harvest Temple Challenge Mode specifically also has a bunch of extra special walls that people can be searching for that I'm not going to go over because I'm going to be honest, if you need this guide, you're not ready for HTCM. IBS in combination with the numbers 3, 5, or the word easy. This refers to the most commonly ran combinations of strikes that came with Icebrute Saga. Easy, Easy 3, or often just IBS 3, refers to the shortest combination of Icebrute Saga strikes: Shiver Peak Pass, Voice and Claw, and Freynier of Jormag. IBS 5 additionally adds the more difficult Voice of Jormag and Bone Skinner. KO, Kainang Overlook, the first strike mission from End of Dragons. NM, Normal Mode, used for strike missions to differentiate between the normal difficulty and the challenge mode. So for example, AHNM is Aetherblade Hideout Normal Mode. OLC, Court, or Lion Court, referring to Old Lion's Court, the strike mission that came with the re-release of Living World Season 1. SP, Shiver Peak Pass, the first strike mission introduced with the Icebrute Saga in the episode Bound by Blood, and one of the easiest endgame encounters in the entire game. Voice and Claw, or Kodens, or sometimes just Bears. This is the second strike mission that came with Icebrute Saga in Whispers in the Dark, and the community never really settled on a good name for this, because they're kind of rarely done in solitary. I've seen somebody refer to them as the Teddies once, which I think is very funny. XJJ, Junlai Jade Junkyard, the second strike mission of End of Dragons. And that's it for strike lingo. Moving on to fractals, where there's not actually that much specific terminology. Old CMs, referring to the challenge mode versions of the Nightmare and Shattered Observatory fractals, which the group then wants to do. The reason that old CMs are separated is because it was a very long time between those two coming out and the next challenge mode in Sanqua Peak. So people have a lot more practice on Nightmare and Shattered Observatory, and thus they are generally more reliable and faster than any other CM. So a lot of people just run those two when they want to run fractal CMs. PNF or FP or whatever, those two letters in combination in fractals mean pots and food or potions and food, which means the group is expecting you to provide your own buffs in the form of buff food, and the mist potions, specifically the large mist offensive potion, large mist defensive potion, and Large Mist Mobility Potion. These are very powerful and useful buffs, and they're not particularly hard to get. Budget buff food runs you a couple silver, and the potions can be bought at the Alchemist or earned through the daily recommended fractals. Speaking of, Rex, meaning daily recommendeds, referring to the 3 rotating daily recommended fractals, which encompass a specific scale each day, 1 each coming from Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3, which the group then wants to do. Though if you see this in an LFG post below Tier 3 LFG, it usually just means they're doing whichever tier they have access to. So if you see this in Tier 2, they're doing Tier 1 and 2. If you see this in Tier 1, they're doing T1. Speaking of tiers, T1, T2, T3, and T4, meaning, the relevant tiers of the fractals. And last, UFE, meaning Unstable Fractal Essence, which is the currency awarded for completing fractal challenge modes, and is used as the kill proof for fractal challenge modes. This one's notable because it can be exclusively chaired wearekillproof.me. And then, because this is in order, here's the other category with exactly one abbreviation at the moment. DRM, Dragon Response Mission, a word I have a lot of trouble pronouncing. This is a form of scaling instance content for up to 5 players that came with the Iceberg Saga episode Champions, and was really only popular around that time for people completing the achievements. Next up, raids. Our last category and the one with the longest list of specific lingo, because raids have not only a lot of encounter acronyms, they also have a lot of special roles for various encounters. Starting with Bubble, referring to the Revenant skill Protective Solace, better known as the Ventari Bubble, which can provide the group with permanent uptime on projectile block that can also move with them, valued specifically for Wing 7. CA, in this context referring to Conjured Amalgamate, the first boss of Wing 6. Escort, the common name for the event Siege the Stronghold, the first encounter of Wing 3. Gate, the shortened name for the event Gates of Ashadim, the first encounter of Wing 7. These two things, escort and gate, are sometimes paired with the word cleared or a minus, indicating that these encounters are skipped because somebody has already done them for the group beforehand, so you don't have to do them to clear this wing, as these two are fairly unpopular for being kind of long and boring. Greens, or G1, G2, G3, this means the group is looking for somebody who can do the special greens role for the boss Doom in Wing 5. Greens are usually split between the tank, a special kiter, and 1 DPS players. HK, meaning hand kite, this group is looking for somebody who can do the special hand kiter role for the boss Deimos in Wing 4. KC, Keep Construct, the second encounter and first real boss of Wing 3. Lamp. Lamp is a special role on the boss Quadim in Wing 6. MO, or Mo, Morsat Overseer, the second boss of Wing 4. Push/kite. Now, these can actually have a couple different meanings. Put together, they're usually referring to the special roles of Pusher and Kiter that are relevant for Solus Horror and Doom respectively over the course of Wing 5, and is generally a role filled by the same person, and traditionally pretty much always a druid. But there's also other kiters, like flak kiting for Sabbatha in Wing 1, oil kiting for Deimos in Wing 4, and wyvern kiting for Quadim in Wing 6. Pylon. This group's looking for people who can do the pylon kite role for the final boss of Wing 7, Quadim the Peerless. Q1 or Q2, meaning Quadim 1 or Quadim 2, referring to the final bosses of Wing 6 or 7, respectively, Quadim and Quadim the Peerless. QTP, Quadim the Peerless, the final boss of Wing 6. Reflect. Now, Reflect is just a general term for any skill that reflects projectiles, but in the context of LFG, this means the group is looking for specifically either a Mesmer player with the skill Feedback or a Guardian player with the skill Wall of Reflection for the boss Matthias in Wing 3. There are plenty of other Reflect skills, but these two are the ones that function in a way that's most beneficial for completing the encounter. River, meaning River of Souls, the second encounter in Wing 5. SH, meaning Soulless Horror, the first encounter of Wing 5. Shrooms. This group is looking for people who can do the Shroom Eater roles on Slothazor for Wing 2, typically a DPS player. Unlike pretty much all other special roles, this does not require a specialized build, you just need to understand the mechanic. Statues, referring to statues of Grenth, the third encounter of Wing 5. Sword or shield, this is specifically referring to the sword and shield mechanics for Conjured Amalgamate in Wing 6, and they are looking for somebody who can fill that special role. Similarly to Shrooms, this does not require a specific build. You just need to understand the mechanic. TC, Twisted Castle, the third encounter of Wing 3. TL, Twin Largos, the second boss of Wing 2. Tower or Tower Chrono, meaning this group is looking for somebody who can fulfill the special tower role for the escort encounter in Wing 3. Pretty much always done by a Chronomancer. VG, meaning Veil Guardian, the first boss of Wing 1. And now, right here at the bottom, we have the absolute most common acronym in Raid LFG, the W. W followed by a number run through 7 refers to a specific raid wing, which have been numbered in the order of their release, which then usually means that is the wing or wings that the group wants to do. If it's given in a format that is W, a number dash another number, so W1-4, that means wing 1 through 4. So the group wants to do all of those in a single run, though not necessarily always in order. To go through which one's which, Wing 1 is Spirit Veil, Wing 2 is Salvation Pass, Wing 3 is Stronghold of the Faithful, Wing 4 is Bastion of the Penitent, and those first 4 wings make up the Heart of Thorns wings. Wing 5 is Hall of Chains, Wing 6 is Mithrite Gambit, and Wing 7 is the Key of Ashadim, which those 3 together make up the Path of Fire raids. And that's it. Now, as I said, this isn't every single acronym that might come up in conversation around the game. It's only the ones you might see pop up on LFG. The document also includes another tab that has a bunch of abbreviations that refer to specific builds, classes, and elite specs, but those are almost never seen on LFG, so I didn't want to go over them. So yeah, I hope this, or more likely the document to search, can be of some help to you, because I know LFG lingo can be quite a big barrier to entry for doing endgame content, but I really can't fault the people writing these. I do the exact same thing. It's not because we want to keep people out, it's just because LFG is not very well constructed, and you need to fit a lot of information into a kind of small character limit, and you also don't want to type out every single name every single time, because that gets really annoying. It would be really nice if we could get like a full revamp of LFG at some point. That makes it a lot easier to both search and post without having to rely on a ton of lingo. But for now, I hope this video is useful. I hope the document is useful. To share the document with anyone you think might benefit from it. I know there is a page on the wiki that also has like a list of abbreviations, but that thing is ludicrously outdated and overbloated with a bunch of terms that nobody really uses. I think it's really poorly organized, and I didn't want to have to deal with updating that. But if anybody feels like it, please absolutely go to that page and start updating it with more modern terms and with all the terms that it's missing. You can absolutely copy anything I've written here, though I think most of it doesn't fit the style of the wiki, so, you know, discretion is advised. Would be cool if somebody could rework that, but I really did not feel up to fixing the mess that is that page. So yeah, thanks for watching. Maybe do the YouTube things, subscribing, liking, whatever. It helps quite a lot. This is the first, like, non-build related thing I've done in a while, but I think it's a similar ballpark, so I hope this was still interesting to people, and goodbye!